Hi, welcome to this product launch. Today we're going to talk about our new product, GYDE365 RFP Copilot. With me, I have Henry Nichols, one of our partner success managers, and Richard Hughes, our chief strategy officer. So as we move on, what are requests for proposals? So I'm sure we all have a view of what they are, but just to kind of put our view of the world, it's typically a document that a customer produces to help support a procurement process. So they kind of contain lots of different things, but we put some of the core common elements here. So typically some sort of evaluation criteria. So how is a customer going to score this procurement process? Some element of information around what requirements they have for their, in this case, business application update or new requirements for a new business system application, what they want out of potential suppliers, technical, functional capability, and also cost. So what's the cost of the supply solution to address that customer's needs? Why do customers do it? In most cases, it's because they want to have a standardized process to make sure there's a robust mechanism to evaluate different suppliers and potentially different products as well. In some industry sectors, it's mandatory, especially in things like public sector. They are kind of mandated to run these formal, structured proposal processes, but we are seeing a lot of private companies doing it as well. So what are the challenges for suppliers or partners when they're working on RFPs? Put some of these down here. They tend to take a lot of resource. In our old business, when we were an implementation partner, we tended to kind of refuse to work on RFPs just for the sheer volume of work they would entail, the amount of people who it would eat up and consume to produce, but also we also felt in most cases we weren't in control of that process. Maybe somebody else was driving that request for proposal, creating it, etc. But having said that, in certain industry sectors we worked in, we had to respond to them. So these are kind of the typical challenges that we see through talking to partners, our own experiences. They are complex documents, and the main reason is we are deviating from our standard way of doing discovery, of understanding some customers' requirements. We're probably moving away from artifacts that we have to support that process. So it might be standard requirement steps, standard requirement documents we have to fill out, our estimation models, etc. So all of these things are kind of, we move away from it. We have to work on the customer's defined format. We might have to present things in a way that they want us to do, which requires us to manipulate information that we would normally provide. So what are kind of the best practices, or what can we do to improve our experience? So we put again a few things that are the potentially best practice, so it might help you in the process, make you win more deals, and maybe run with more opportunities in the RFP process. So I guess the first thing is, whilst we want to be compliant, we want to make sure we're following the process. In many cases, there is an opportunity to add more, to be more disruptive, to maybe put ourselves in a position where we stand out ahead of other people responding. It is really important to read these documents thoroughly to understand, what the customer's looking for. And in many cases, there may be things in there that A, will help us in our bid, but also areas in which maybe we should mark as red flags and maybe not even go through that process. So understanding up front before we dive into it what that RFP is about is important. We touched on this in the previous slide. If we have a standard way of estimating that works in our normal kind of discovery process, we need to make sure we're still using that when we're working on RFPs. We've seen too many times where we start to change that process and do different things, and we start to estimate in a different way. And our advice is really to use your current techniques and then pass that through to the format the customer wants. We should use tools where possible to aid and make that process more efficient, to make sure our colleagues that are responding and working with these RFPs have some help in that process. And we're going to talk more about GYDE RFP, but yes, it's one of the tools that can really help you in that process. Providing comprehensive responses. If you're going to do an RFP, I would suggest you do it well. And that means providing as much information in a qualitative manner as possible. Otherwise, you're kind of going to be putting an amount of effort in, but not being successful whilst you're doing that. And then looking at some of the other items that we noted, understand the client's needs. Yeah, I mean, it's about understanding what they're looking for, highlighting where you can provide more information, having more data sources to support you in that, being able to highlight where you've done this before, highlight your strengths, making sure we're as accurate and consistent as possible. And the final point I put there is kind of make sure you meet submission deadlines. So probably the first thing I would add is make sure you know when you need to submit, and make sure that you work backwards from that date. Otherwise, you don't want to put a lot of effort in and find out you missed the date by 1 or 2 days and you've spent a lot of effort. Anything to add, Richard, on this? I know you've done a lot of these in your work.
Yeah, no, again, it's all about trying to streamline the amount of effort. It does, as you mentioned, it takes a lot of time. It costs a lot of money. So the cost of sale on an RFP can be really high. I know in our previous lives, we worked on some RFPs that, if you to actually do the maths, is it actually worth it? So especially now where a lot of partners use the software sale to cover the cost of sale, and as we all know, that's dropped dramatically over the last sort of 5-10 years. So trying to make it more efficient, but also making sure that the quality is there and having that repeatability across all the RFPs you do. As we all know, it's very difficult to have exactly the right people free when you try and do these RFPs. They don't always come in at an opportune time. So that's kind of the point of this, is to get that repeatability, to get that level of quality across all of your submissions. It's really important. And obviously the submission deadlines, we all smiled when he said that. I'm very sure we've all got horror stories about that. So it's a definitely important one.
So how can we help with GYDE365? We are going to make RFPs a pleasurable experience for you. That's our commitment.
High bar.
High bar, yeah. So where does GYDE Qualify fit into the rest of the stack? So for those that know what we do, our goal in life is to really automate and help you accelerate your journey of marketing to selling to and implementing to your customers. Qualify touches upon how we really do a fast engagement in terms of understanding the customer's needs. However, when we talk about an RFP, we kind of have missed that point already. The customers come to us with a document. Effectively, if you accept that's something you're going to respond to, that's probably your first engagement with that. So you probably want to do some sort of review of that to make sure it fits in your process. I know we've got some of our partners that may have a specific qualify for RFPs. So maybe you've got some like opportunity review criteria that you want to make sure each of your RFPs have to meet before you respond, and then dive into effort. I would suggest that we create a qualifier that does that. So we have a standard view of evaluating an RFP. So, for example, timeline, estimated effort, industries, all that sort of stuff might be something you want to kind of evaluate to make sure, should we run this RFP process? Okay, but let's assume we accept an RFP. What we do then is we start off with RFP Copilot. That allows us to respond to that RFP, but then we also want to use that information to pass into our Discover application, which will then give us our estimations, additional information around proposals. If you maybe want to, if you win the deal, we can also produce a statement of work, and then we move that into our implementation tooling. Okay, so that's kind of where it sits into the product stack. So what is RFP Copilot? And I would really stress the Copilot view of this. We are not, certainly not for the foreseeable future, going to have an application what we would love to do, which takes the RFP, puts it through some black box and produces the response in the customer format automatically without any effort. That's not something we have. But what we have is an application that will help you and your sales and pre-sales team respond to that RFP in a structured manner. So the starting point is we have a document or a set of documents from the customer. It could be a Word, Excel document. We put it into RFP Copilot, which reads those documents, it brings it into our environment, it extracts all the requirements that may be present in that document. We can then go and manually adjust and add additional requirements if we've missed stuff through the automatic AI engine. So once we have those requirements in the platform, what RFP Copilot does then is goes and matches that to standard requirements that we have in the Discover application, or you may have in your specific Discover surveys if you've adjusted them within GYDE. And what that allows us to do is to take that customer's language for a requirement and map it to one or many requirements that we have in our GYDE Discover data set. What that then allows us to do is to say, okay, for each requirement the customer's asked, we then have a fit gap analysis against that. And we can use that information that it produces to help us with the response, but also it'll start us to build that information around estimation to get our price and timeline, etc. Okay, that's kind of the theory and the process. I'm going to hand over now to Henry, who's going to do us a brief demonstration of how this would work in an end-to-end basis.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sam. Welcome to GYDE365 Discover, and as Sam has mentioned, we have our RFP Copilot section within the platform. So here you can see some of the previous projects that we've worked on, and it's nice and simple. We'll click Create, and this will take us to our starting point. So here we're going to enter some information. So we'll just call this an example RFP. We can then select an application, and this can be a combination of one ERP and one CRM app, and you can see some of the applications that we hold within the system. I'm just going to go with FSCM for today. We then have to select a survey, and you can see some of the various different survey templates we have available. And again, I'm going to go for a large ERP enterprise one. We then can add an account if we have one created. We can pop in the due date and provide some description to help our colleagues, but I'm just going to go ahead and save that information. Once we have the base project ready, we can then add in the RFP itself. And I will say, I have gone and created an RFP for today. It is worth spending a good 10 to 15 minutes reading through the RFP and making sure it's in a good format before ingesting it into RFP Copilot. So I'm just going to select my Word document here. We'll give it a file description and then upload. So from this point, we are ready to go into RFP Copilot and begin the journey. So we can either go straight in. What I will highlight is if you have an idea of the modules that the prospect, the customer have said that they need or would like to consider, you can go in and start to scope and take some of these out and really focus the AI when it's doing the matching, as Sam mentioned. It will be focusing for requirements that sit within here. So for example, I may want to take HR, I'll take transportation and warehouse management out from here and click update. And this is just going to inform the AI that we don't want to consider these when we go into our project. So we'll click go to RFP. And this is going to begin our Copilot RFP journey. So whilst this is loading, this is now ingesting the document that we have just popped in, and it's creating the exact format that I have within the document. It's provided me with the table of contents on the left-hand side, so I can quickly navigate between the different sections, and it's pulled in all of my information, a combination of organization and intro, bit of background information here, as well as then our scope and requirements. And you can see a few here. So there's a few things to highlight. There is a nice AI button that we can use at the top, and this is going to go through and quickly identify the functional requirements that we want to take through and consider. So I always like to use this as a first pass. Going to go through and pull out all of those requirements, and then I can spend some time going through and refining those. It might be that there are some we don't want to consider for this part of the project, and we can easily remove those as well. So here it's loaded, and all the requirements that have been identified using AI are tagged with a black tag here, as you can see. We can also manually go through and identify requirements. It's as simple as holding and highlighting. Then as a right click, we can set as a requirement, and you'll see that these then jump to green tags and are highlighted in green as well. And if I select one of these, there's a little pane on the left-hand side that then shows an example, one or two examples of the GYDE365 requirements that we are matching with our RFP requirement that's come from our prospect. That's how you would deal with Word requirements. We can also deal with tables that you would get in an Excel document, and it's a nice simple way of mapping. Select table type requirements and then map these columns. We're going to pull through the ID so that we have a reference to our document as we're going through. We'll then highlight the function or the requirement itself, and then we're going to pull in the Moscow. And this could be a priority rating of 1 to 2 or 3 or 5. It could be a RAG status. What we're able to do is take the value that the prospect has provided and map it to the standard Moscow ratings that we use within GYDE365 Discover. And this then helps us answer the full survey when we create our Discover account. So we'll click Save, and again, I'll just highlight that even within the table, you can get an example of the requirements that we're matching. So once you've spent a good amount of time going through and ratifying all of your requirements in here, we can click Save and Next, and this will take us into our next section called Matched Requirements. And this is where we envision our partners spend the most amount of time within GYDE365 RFP Copilot. This is where we're going through each individual RFP requirement that we've highlighted, and we're doing the match, that one-to-many match, to the Discover requirements. On the left-hand side, you can see all of the RFP requirements that we've pulled through, and on the right-hand side are all of the different matches within the Discover library that we've pulled in. So with our chart of accounts, you can see that we've got lots of high relevancy matches. We've got some really good examples of creator chart of accounts and default, and a few others that it is suggesting to us. What we may want to do is go through and start to say, okay, these are the ones we want to take through. So I'll select all of my requirements, and I'm going to take create chart of accounts, default chart of accounts, and I may want to migrate my existing one from a current system. I may want to take some form of records through, so I will take those 3 with me. It may be that I would like some additional information to understand what the Discover requirements are actually asking me, and to do that, we'd click Edit Columns and then pop on our help text, and then you get an additional amount of information, some more context as to what the Discover requirements here are.
Well, why this is really useful, I think, is what we see with the partners that have been on our pilot program, is where we're able to get perhaps less experienced people to start the initial RFP process, because all the data around the actual requirement and the information is here in one place. Typically, when when you're filling out an RFP, you probably need your most experienced people to do that deciphering. This is a really good way of doing that first pass. You see, in this particular case, we've got a relatively light RFP where it's probably fewer requirements than we would expect, and we can add more to it because the customer hasn't been specific enough. We have the extremes where the customer's being super prescriptive, and again, we can match that in a more one-to-one relationship as opposed to one-to-many that we have here. So it's a really useful way, and this is again why we call it a co-pilot. It's supporting you and the team in responding to it. But we're definitely seeing more of our partners being able to use a wider pool of people to support that initial kind of response process.
Exactly. There are other capabilities. We can mark requirements as custom or bespoke requirements. So take the exceptional code example here. This could be a mistype. It might be that we just need a little bit of clarification from the prospect. And so rather than not handling it within the system, we can set it as a custom requirement, and we'll then be able to manage that better within our Discover survey as well. So once we've gone through, we've tailored all of the different requirements, RFP requirements, and we've taken a first pass, or we've invited colleagues in to help us go through and ensure that the matches that are found are the ones we want to then take back to our prospect. We'd click Save and Next, and this will then take us into the next stage. This next stage is where we have finished matching. We've finished the RFP requirements itself, and we are now considering other requirements that we want to propose to the prospect. So as Sam mentioned, the RFP could be light. In this example, it is a very light requirement document, and it could be that you want to give them other areas within the tool, within Dynamics, for them to consider. And this is how we surface it. So these are Dynamics modules that we have on the left-hand side, a long list. And again, this is tailored depending on how you've gone through and said you want your modules in the module selector. And within here, we can choose whether we want to suggest these to our customers. These are our ancillary, our complementary requirements. And these would then help us to build our estimate and utilize the estimation tooling that we have within GYDE365 Discover when we create our account.
And it's also worth noting this point, some of these additional requirements where our pilot partners really found this quite useful is giving this to the customers additional documentation. So what they have said is, look, you've asked for these things, but in our experience, typically customers also need these requirements. So it kind of shows that customer that you really thought about what they're looking for. You're trying to help them not stress sell more, but trying to make sure they're maximizing the process in evaluation.
Exactly, Sam. And just to complement what you just said, all of these Moscow responses that you see on the right-hand side, this is based on the historical responses from the thousands of customers that we've had answer a Discover survey. So it's not just us providing the Moscow. This is based on historical data that we found within the system and how people have best answered that.
If I can just add one small thing here as well, Henry. I know some of our partners that have been on the pilot have also used transcripts from Teams calls with the customer to add additional data to respond to the RFP. So although we're talking about RFP, and that's definitely what this is about, but you can also bring additional content into this where, so it could be from calls, it could be from emails, whatever, but bringing that information in as well. It doesn't have to just be the RFP document. I think just to flag it, because I thought it was quite an interesting use case as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It definitely is. And I mean, that great example, Rich, you can not only bring in the RFP document when we're processing this, we can handle multiple documents. So if you did have a transcript, you've gone through, you've processed it using Copilot or ChatGPT, you've turned it into like a Word document. You could have multiple documents within our RFP requirements area, and we can bring through the various different requirements that we identify and manage them in here. So it could be a combination of Excel, Word, it could be transcripts, it could be RFP documents. There are various different use cases and flexibility within the platform to allow us to do that as well. So if we progress through, we're then going into our final stage, our summary, and this is where we bring everything we've done so far together. It's where we get a complete overview. We get to see all of the different matches directly to our RFP requirements, to the GYDE365 Discover functional requirements. It's where we get to see all of these suggested requirements that are currently saving as well. And we also get to see any custom requirements. So that exceptional code one, you'll remember, was a mistype, and we're able to view that. And then as a catch-all, if the AI was unable to match to a prospect's requirement, we bring it through as an unmatched one in here. So if I just quickly show, you can see some of the examples that it has pulled as unmatched in there. So from here, within our summary, as well as being able to view all of those requirements, there are two final steps that are worth noting. The first one is that you are able to pull a response summary, which is just a standard template out from the system. So I'll set that downloading, and I will open that up. And in the meantime, the next step is to create a Discover account and then to sync everything you've done into that Discover account. So we'll select our sync button here. It prompts us to make an account, and we'll quickly fill this out. We'll call this our example RFP. We'll add in an output type, and this is one of the configuration settings that we have within GYDE365 Discover. And again, our parameters, rate card, we'll go with our BC set. Then the email recipient, I'll just pop our support email in here. Portal timeout is a nice security feature. These are some of the languages that we currently support on GYDE365 Discover, and we can view our survey in business process or by functional area or category, if you will. We'll click create, and then once that has created, we'll push all of our responses into our account. So we'll start that process off, and I'll pull up our response summary. So our response summary looks like this. It is just a standard template, and you can see we have here our list of RFP requirements, all of the various different ones that we highlighted, either through the AI or I went through and manually added them in. We provide a consolidated fit gap to the Dynamics product that we selected at the very start, the application. So this is a fit gap then to FNSCM, and we've brought through the customer, the prospect's Moscow priority rating as well. We then, on the match requirements, this is a view of that same match requirement screen. We've brought it into the Excel so you can get all of the useful information here. And one thing that we are also able to do is pop in comments or start to respond to the prospect's RFP. So if we, in the platform, start to enter in our responses, we're also able to pull them out. So if you wanted to provide this as an additional document, as well as responding directly to the customer's RFP, you would have all of that information in here. And the same then for our unmatched and any custom requirements. We pull all the information out so you can start to manipulate it and pop it back into the customer's response summary or response document into the format that they require. The last bit then is just to jump into our Discover account that we've created. So if I jump into my example RFP, this is where we are now able to create the estimate. We're able to create all of the documentation, statement of work, proposal, our ROM in portal. We're able to utilize all of the various different components of Discover and help to build a full response. And as Sam mentioned at the very start with our slide, where help to flesh out a complete response for this prospect. So we've got all of our...
Sorry, and then, so the key thing here, though, is that this not only gives you your estimation information. So, you know, most RFPs you're going to have to come up with an estimation, a resource breakdown, a pricing, a timeline. So now this is in Discover able to do that through the automatic estimation and timeline capability you have in Discover. But more importantly, as you move forward in the sales cycle, so maybe you won the bid or you're in the BAFO, best and final offer phase, we can start to use the ROM portal to do scenario mapping, to kind of look at our margin analysis, to start to work out, you know, what is our best and final offer that we can go to whilst maintaining margin. Let's move resources around, etc., etc. So we're able to use the Discover engine to do that. And if you win the deal, then we can start to produce documents such as the statement of work. And if you then want to start mobilizing the project, we can then move this into GYDE Initiate, and then also the design work as well. So it's a real way of kind of making sure we've got a standard flow to move this project forward. So that's brilliant. Thank you, Henry. It was a great overview of the application. There's clearly a ton more that we can show, and if anyone is interested, then please reach out to us and we can arrange a more detailed demonstration. We're constantly adding to the application. We've had 6 partners on our pilot program that we started last in July 2024. This is now released to manufacture. So people are using it in our partner base, but we really want more people using it. We're learning from partner feedback, from real life experiences, and we're hoping that this will be a really important tool in your armory as a partner. So just kind of in summary, it's about saving time. We did allude to the fact that we can also use information gathered through calls and workshops via Copilot. We have some partners that do that without even an RFP. So maybe you are doing a discovery workshop. We can just record that and then we can bring that in as a document in. So it doesn't have to be a starting position of a predefined RFP. We can use it to really analyze our verbal discovery sessions that we do with the customer. Standardization is super important. How do we make sure our responses are standardized? How do we feed that back into the application so where the next time around we've got more information? So having it in one place so we can respond in the same way and better each time. Cannot stress the importance of hardly enough of the estimation. So if you are using GYDE, which you should be doing for your estimates, making sure your RFPs use the same engine is super important. And the final points there is, let's make sure we're supporting our team. RFPs are stressful. We're under a lot of time pressure. Some customers really do not give in enough time. So given the tooling to help streamline that process, make it more efficient, is really what we're trying to do here. Okay. So if you are interested in finding out more, please reach out to us in the usual manners. You can contact us via our email there, or go to our website and find out more information. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.